For the past year or so now, I've pretty much been glued to a screen. Not my phone screen necessarily, but the screen of my little Kindle here. I purchased this thing a little while ago because I was physically running out of space in my bookshelf. I have about 3 or 4 manga bookshelves all over my house, as well as a big shared bookshelf with my fiance on just non-manga books. But I don't have an infinite amount of money or space to collect as many manga books as I possibly can, let alone just regular novels, so I naturally had to turn to this little thing. And I always had a bit of I guess, negative connotation about these Kindles, because I was like, well, what's the difference between reading a book on your phone as opposed to something like this? Is this just not a glorified phone or an iPad? Well, since I bought it about a year ago, I've definitely fallen back on that because it most certainly is not. In fact, it's actually helped me to get off my phone for quite a while. I'm a millennial. I grew up in a time when I was a child where we didn't have access to the internet. We were on dial-up, and you couldn't do shit on dial-up, especially because your mum would never get off the phone talking to her other mum friends. And yes, although I did have video games, although I did have friends to go out and play outside with, sometimes I just wanted to sit down and read a little bit of manga, read a book. And so it's been nice that I've been able to kind of rekindle that book love in recent years, and it's a great hobby that I started to rediscover again. And I guess while I was thinking about this rediscovery of my reading hobbies, it inspired me to kind of talk about the thing I'm going to talk about in this video, which is the fact that I don't really see a lot of people having hobbies. Now you might be thinking, Joey, what the fuck do you mean by that? Well, simply put, I have a feeling that now this idea of having a hobby is almost seen as like a waste of time. What is a hobby? Well, I think there's a lot of different ways that you can interpret it, but my interpretation of it is a thing that you can turn towards to get out of the cycle of your mundane job life or your just life in general. Something that you have passion about, something that you want to keep learning more about because it makes you happy and it makes you feel good when you use your open time to delve into that subject. I love reading books, manga, novels, you name it, because it's a great way for me to really dive my mind into a story. I've always loved reading fiction, hence why I started a career talking about Japanese animated fiction. So when I tell people that I've kind of rediscovered my love for books again, and it's kind of been this new quote-unquote hobby that I've recently got into, I'm returned with one of two responses. The first response being, wow man, that's a great thing because it takes your eyes off of your phone screen, and I think that's a great thing because social media is rotting our brains, and brain rot is a dangerous and addicting drug that the kids can't escape from. So good job that you're able to escape out of that loop. I wish I had the willpower to do that. Spoiler alert. You can. Just buy a book and start reading it. It's really not that hard. You can do it. I believe in you. But the second response, which is a little more relevant to today's video, is people going, oh, so are you trying to be an author? Are you trying to write a book yourself? And the answer to that is, yes, that has been one of my small little dreams I've always wanted to achieve, because I think it's a great way to leave your name behind, and it's a great exercise in the creative process. I think anyone who has a creative mind and anyone who loves books, at least in some part, hope to one day write a book of their own. And no, this is not a video of me promoting my new book. That'll come later when I've finished writing said book eventually. But it is true that I do want to eventually write a book. I've always been interested in that, and I think that's a genuine thing to strive towards if you are a creative person who loves literature. But then I stopped to think about it and I was just like, Is that what hobbies have become now? Hobbies haven't become this thing that you can just sink your time into because you enjoy it for your own personal satisfaction or to create a community or anything like that. It's almost become this invisible roadmap that you have created for yourself that can potentially lead to the next revenue source or the next career path. Essentially, a road that will eventually make your hobby your job. But then I was like, hang on, that wouldn't really be a hobby in that case. That would just be like a side hustle. And look, don't get me wrong, this is not me coming onto camera and saying, oh, you shouldn't have any side hustles, you shouldn't strive for a career opportunity of something you love, because I would be being a massive hypocrite if I were to preach that in front of a camera, because I am that person. I am one of many people who turned their hobbies into a job. I started reading manga and watching anime as a kid because it was a thing that I loved to do, and it was my genuine, passionate hobby that just so happened to turn into or lead me towards this very job of being in a dark lit room with an eyeball beanie talking about hobbies and jobs to an invisible audience behind the camera. So if you do have that like one hobby that you really are using as a side hustle, and it could be anything, you know, especially anything creative, like if you're drawing because you want to be an illustrator or you want to be a manga artist, then good on you. Continue that. Please continue that. I'm not telling you to stop, and do not think that this is a discouragement video to stop that. But what I am saying is that I don't like the fact that there is now this societal norm or societal pressure to make every single one of your hobbies into a side hustle. I don't like this idea that hobbies can't just be this thing that you do because you love it. Nothing more, nothing less. Because yes, I am one of those people who turn their hobbies into a job. I turned the hobby of watching anime and discussing it among my friends into a job, where now I watch anime or read manga and talk about it on camera. Albeit I don't do it as much nowadays, it was certainly the thing that got me here in the first place. But now what happens is that I don't see watching anime or reading manga as a hobby anymore. And you know, there is a world where you can love your job just as much as a hobby. And it wouldn't be any less fun if it wasn't my job, because when I first started doing this, it wasn't my job. But the scary thing about turning your hobby into a job is that even though you can turn it from the former to the latter, it's really difficult to go the other direction. If you have the skills enough and you've worked long enough, and if you are lucky enough, then you can turn your creative hobby into a creative job. But it's really, especially mentally difficult to turn that creative job back into a creative hobby. Although I started watching anime and reading manga as a hobby, and it became my job, I got burnt out on it very quickly. I stopped enjoying it because whenever I thought to myself, I need to watch this anime or I need to read this manga, in the back of my head there was a tiny little voice that said, yeah, but are you gonna make a video on it? I couldn't turn off this voice in my head that says to just enjoy the medium for what it is. And you know, thankfully now, after quite a long hiatus, after a 3 or 4 year hiatus, I have slowly started to change my brain chemistry into actually enjoying anime and manga purely because I want to consume it, not because I want to make videos on it. But fuck me, man. That shit was hard. And let me just make this super fucking clear, because a lot of people love taking videos like this and taking it out of context. I know that this is the most first world problem thing ever, because truth be told, there are many people out there in many situations who don't have the luxury to have just a hobby. They need to have a side hustle in order to survive. And please understand that I'm not downplaying those people in the slightest. I know life is difficult, and I know how privileged and blessed that I am to be in my position today. But if you're a kid in their teens, in their early 20s, who wants to have just a regular ass hobby, whether it be reading books, or painting, or skateboarding, or watching movies, or any creative hobby, or any hobby for that matter, I highly implore you to really sit down and think about, do I want to turn this hobby into a job? Because there is a possibility, like it happened to me, yes, you will be able to get that job from that hobby, but you might not be able to get that hobby back. That's a big reason why, for example, I kind of soft quit my Twitch career, just streaming online and, streaming games especially. I would purchase a video game and I would sit down and be like, hell yeah, I love playing video games and I'm so excited to sit down and play this new video game. There was, again, that small voice in the back of my head that said, yeah, but you could be streaming it though. That's when I very quickly shut that little voice up. I was like, shut your bitch ass up. I'm not making the same mistake that I did with manga and anime. That's not to say that I'm going to stop streaming ever. You know, every now and then I do stream. It's just very, very rare occurrence now. It's like witnessing the total solar eclipse. What I managed to do was I managed to stop myself almost in turning that hobby into a job, because I didn't want to lose that hobby. Having a hobby, not a side hustle, having a hobby is just a fantastic thing for your mental health. In a world now where everything needs to be a side hustle, everything needs to be about getting the bread and doing the grind set, because the world is going to shit and you need to grab all the cash that you can before it all goes to shit. Sometimes you need a little bit of escapism in your life. Sometimes you need that little thing that you can just sink your mind into and enjoy to your heart and soul's content, because you want to do so. Because you don't want to think about how shit the world is for just a little moment, and instead focus your mind and attention on something that truly makes you happy and fulfilled. For me, that's what this little thing is. This little fucking Amazon branded book reading tablet thingamajig is the thing that is taking me away from the stresses of everyday life and the quote unquote grind set of the modern day. For instance, today, during the day, I decided, you know what, I've been working a lot this week. Yesterday especially, I did like a 7-hour recording for a project I'm working on. I just, you know, need to give myself a little time off. I could have been planning for videos, or, you know, scouting for a new thing to film, or, you know, designing a new piece of clothing or something like that. But instead, I thought to myself, no, you know what, I'm just gonna actually relax and take part in a hobby. Something that I'm not doing because I hope to one day make money from it, or because I know that it's going to lead to some kind of job opportunity in the near future. I mean, I do eventually want to write that book, but I'm not trying to be a full-time author or anything. It's actually fun to have a hobby that actually dresses up and acts like a hobby, not dressing up in a full business suit, ready for their next job interview. And it's not just books, you know, recently, like, I've been really getting into these CRTs recently so that I can play my retro games and stuff like that. And I don't have any, like, streaming set up in here. I just have this here and sometimes come in here and boot up a Super Nintendo, boot up an N64, boot up the PS1, and just sit down and chill and just play some video games. You know, if you've watched this video, for instance, you know that I have a fuckload of vinyl records, and I'm not collecting those necessarily because I want to be the next Anthony Fantano or anything like that. No, I collect these things, and I spend time on these things, and have fun learning about these new things because that's just what makes me happy. And especially in this day and age, with the whole boogeyman that is social media rotting the brains of the youths and everything like that, it's also just a great escape from all of that. You know, we used to go to the internet to escape from the real world, and even though people are complaining nowadays that the real world is worse than it's ever been, we're still using it as an escape to escape from the internet. So it's a little ironic when you think about it like that. If you have a hobby that you want to turn into a side hustle because you believe in your creative skills to turn that into a job that you will enjoy, go ahead. Just because I lost that spark that turned that hobby into my job, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen to you. But what I am saying is this: don't turn all of your hobbies into side hustles. Sure, have a couple of hobbies that you want to turn into a side hustle. If you want to become the next musician and your hobby is playing the guitar, then hey man, work those fingers off, learn those frets, learn those chords, and just aim towards that job that you want to be. But if you have something on the sideline as well, like say reading a book, or painting, or reading manga, or watching anime, maybe keep some of those as just hobbies. Everybody needs a work-life balance, so why would you turn everything in your life into potential work? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and thanks for watching. In the meantime, if you want to hear me talk more, here's some more videos you can watch. Some of them are good. I am reading a really good book right now, or book series right now. I'm on the 3rd book out of 10, so hopefully once I finish that, I'll be able to make a video on it, because I really want to talk about it, because it's been great. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.